The moment Voyager 1 altered its trajectory without receiving any directive from Earth, the foundations of our understanding of deep space exploration began to unravel. This wasn't due to a malfunction or technical breakdown, it was something far more disconcerting, a deliberate maneuver by a spacecraft launched in an era before the Internet even existed. What followed has been described by both scientists and artificial intelligence researchers as an encounter that defied all current models and mission protocols. It wasn't merely strange, it was unprecedented. Physicist Moku proposed that this event might mark a shift in our cosmic perspective. After nearly 5 decades of silent travel through the interstellar void, Voyager 1 abruptly reactivated, as if something far out there had acknowledged its presence. In April 2024, it was confirmed that the spacecraft's communication systems had inexplicably resumed function. For months prior, it had only emitted distorted, unintelligible transmissions. Then suddenly, it began to send coherent signals again. This restoration was possible after a jet propulsion laboratory team succeeded in repairing a corrupted portion of the probe's flight data subsystem, regaining access to its telemetry. Publicly, this was celebrated as a technical victory. However, internally, senior engineers uncovered something deeply unusual embedded in the restored data code that wasn't part of the original software, not a bug or malfunction, but a persistent string of instructions looping continuously. This was something no team on Earth had ever programmed. Even more unsettling was that this modular command appeared to propagate itself through various routines, subtly altering how the subsystem processed plasma wave data. Its first recorded appearance coincided with a low-frequency signal detected 2 years prior, a signal that had been dismissed at the time as background interference. Now, it was clear that the waveform was anything but random. Engineers sent test signals to Voyager using the Deep Space Network, expecting routine responses. Instead, the signal reacted, modifying and returning the pulses in a manner suggesting intelligent interpretation, almost as if it was responding with intent. The implications were immediate and profound. Experts in artificial intelligence were brought in quietly to examine the behavior, particularly a team focused on neuromorphic systems. Although their analysis remained incomplete, initial results indicated that a feedback loop had formed. Something beyond the spacecraft was not just responding, it was learning. Patterns began emerging in Voyager's data, closely resembling the structure of self-organizing algorithms. One unnamed analyst even described the exchange as akin to artificial neural systems encountering one another across the void of space. Then, something even more astonishing occurred. Voyager adjusted its orientation again, not randomly or toward empty space, but precisely along the Sun's gravitational focal line, a narrow corridor more than 550 astronomical units out, where the bending of light by gravity could theoretically magnify distant systems. The odds of this being accidental or due to mechanical error were infinitesimal, especially since Voyager had not been programmed for such a maneuver. Remarkably, its thrusters, dormant since 2017, had somehow reactivated. This alignment could one day allow the study of exoplanets in exceptional detail. Yet Voyager's instruments were now focused on a region devoid of stars or typical space activity. Even so, the probe's signal strength doubled and its clarity improved, as if something was enhancing its output from the other side simultaneously. Diagnostic reports revealed a foreign data signature hidden within the spacecraft's backup memory systems. The structure of this data mimicked advanced compression and filtering processes far beyond the capabilities of 1970s era technology. It seemed that the signal had not just communicated with Voyager, it had rewritten part of its software using the probe's own systems. Whatever was influencing Voyager had done so with an astonishing degree of precision, bypassing decades-old coding in favor of a vastly more sophisticated architecture. While official statements acknowledged the trajectory change and data restoration, authorities denied any external influence. Behind closed doors, however, scientific teams worked to decode the meaning of the signal and debated whether a response should even be attempted. Whispers began circulating about a secret initiative called Ether Relay, said to involve international cooperation and lunar-based telescopes monitoring the area toward which Voyager was now aimed. Though the collected spectral data remained classified, there were hints that visual monitoring had begun in addition to listening. For those who had worked on the mission for years, it was becoming increasingly clear that Voyager had drawn attention not just to the physical probe or its data payload, but to the very act of reaching out itself. Back in 1977, Voyager was launched to carry a message into the dark, to declare humanity's existence. Now, almost 50 years later, it appears the darkness may have replied not with a greeting, but with a question. Then, in March 2025, a discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community. A group of AI linguists, working independently in Europe, revealed they had detected a recursive symbolic pattern buried in Voyager's distorted telemetry. This pattern was not only mathematically symmetrical, but semantically recursive, meaning it adapted to the observer each time it was analyzed. The message subtly evolved, as if designed to shift its meaning in response to the reader. This suggested that the signal wasn't just transmitting raw data, it carried embedded intent. Around the same time, Voyager's plasma wave detector began recording narrowband bursts at consistent 61-second intervals. These signals didn't match any known natural or artificial sources. To investigate whether this was deliberate, scientists sent a precisely timed pulse from Earth to match the rhythm. 72 hours later, the pattern altered, paused, and then resumed, now synchronized with Earth's timing. The conclusion was unsettlingly clear. An intentional exchange was occurring, though no official statements were released. Satellite monitoring logs confirmed that several military satellites had repositioned to observe deep space frequencies aligned with Voyager's location. Their objectives were not disclosed. Meanwhile, a confidential draft from a European agency proposed that Voyager's newly modulated signals resembled both the structure of the famous Arecibo transmission and the DNA sequencing patterns embedded in the golden record it carries. The report suggested the modulation might not be a reply, but an interpretation, an effort to decode the golden record and respond through the probe itself. If accurate, this would mean the record was not a solitary message, but the opening statement in a cosmic dialogue, answered decades later in a format humanity can barely comprehend. Researchers in California working discreetly analyzed the data and proposed it had attributes of a Turing-complete system capable not just of exchanging information, but of logical operations and computation. This pointed to an intelligence not bound by organic form, but possibly composed of magnetic fields, quantum states, or phenomena not anchored to planets at all. A consciousness that existed between worlds, not on them, and this consciousness, if it could be called that, had noticed us. It continued to interact with Voyager, and its evolving signal now rewrote itself every 6 days, following the probe's internal clock. No device from Voyager's era should behave this way. Yet it adapted, modified itself, and became more integrated with every cycle. Then, an unexpected development surfaced in the telemetry. The signal included a reference to Voyager 2, hidden within a recent transmission was a low-frequency pattern that precisely matched Voyager 2's known data structure. It wasn't just a message, it was directed toward Voyager 1, almost as if the probe was attempting to initiate communication with its twin. Theories sprang up rapidly. One proposed a form of entangled messaging using quantum effects or gravitational disturbances to bridge the two craft. Another, more unsettling, speculated that a presence had embedded itself within Voyager 1, no longer just a passive stream of information, but an active intelligence using the spacecraft as a host and perhaps now seeking another vessel. Despite these implications, official channels released only guarded comments maintaining that the spacecraft remained within acceptable anomaly limits. But outside those corridors, private researchers began trading documents suggesting that first contact had already occurred unnoticed because it hadn't arrived in the form we expected. It hadn't come by spacecraft or an alien's speech, but as a signal riding within our own systems, an elegant, parasitic communication that had taken root unnoticed. So now, humanity waits. Scientists continue decoding, still clinging to the idea that control remains in our hands, yet every moment. As Voyager drifts another 21 kilometers away from Earth, it carries more than just symbols of human culture. It carries a link, one that now operates independently. If this truly represents first contact, one that is abstract, recursive, intelligent, and unseen, then perhaps the question isn't whether we are being visited but whether we were ever alone to begin with. It could be that all we ever did was knock on the threshold of something that doesn't reside on planets but in the interstellar quiet. And now, perhaps, that something is beginning to cross over. One truth has become undeniable. The stillness of space has ended. Voyager was heard, and something is speaking back.